everybody, this is Andrew and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We are resuming back the case tree, which is probably the final part of the trial. In the last episode, Enoch Drebber had kinda outsmarted us and kinda blew everything up. Well, not the room that he's in, but he blew up what he called it the Great Machine. Well, anyways, let's see how it goes for this episode. Also, if you guys notice, I use for the investigation that I used the DLC outfit, but this time I'm going to use, I would say, the normal outfit. So, anyways, without further ado, let's continue. Second. Give me a second here, just water first, just in case. Okay. 24th October, 9:11 a.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Good morning to you, Mr. Naoto. Good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings? I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing left to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Mr. Jones, you're here. Why, naturally, a true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I'll see you later, bye-bye. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I realize it was a mistake, but my dear fellas, I must inject. Oh, you're still here, Mrs. Jones. What's the matter? Surely you overlooked some phrases, have you not? To be cast in my direction, sir. Right, you nearly blew us up to Kingdom Cards and nearly assume that the dynamite or the time bomb is a freaking gravity device. Thanks. Sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? The great Enoch Jones, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arose to some ungodly hour to be here now. First things in the morning. America, you must agree. Well, if you must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled off a cover, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me and kicked me from the bed, even to my nuts. Ow! Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was busted. How do you even survive that? Oh my, Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. I see the spirit of Valentine, this one who released the infinite possibility of blending tea. I'm the one who wore the praises. No, here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in. Oh, sorry to cut in. Oh, Inspector Grayson. Good morning. Grayson, my dear fellow. Why the grim expression in this delightful early hour? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I'm being confronted with a grim expression, huh? Dear me. Are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? I don't know. Well, Professor. Anyways, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. You would be believed in the hopes that I'd be jumped through to get this brought out of the archives. As the professor's autopsy report. That's mass murders? Who killed 5 members of the aristocrat? He was found guilty in the ghost trial 10 years ago now. He was all done under wraps, and he was quickly executed as soon after the trial. It's all in here. The killer autopsy report has been entering the court records. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Hold on a sec, let me check that. Condemned prisoner. Redact confidential. Pseudonym the Professor. Dead by hanging confirmed at midnight 73. Courtney Stevens? Wait, Courtney's? So, Courtney's side has a husband? Or mother? I do not know who's this. Huh? That's it! That's all I can get. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Us lowly lords at the yard are just doing what we can, in the shadow of the great dimension, of course. Anyway, see ya. Well then, Professor Herbert, this is it. Today we're going to lay all this to rest at last. I wish you the best, Professor. I suppose he'll be there too, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as the witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel and the defendant, the trial is about to resume. Kindly make your way to the courtroom at once. This is it then, the final chapter. Funny, my heart's racing a little. I'm not feel this before actually, this strange foreboding, as if something's going to happen with this trial that I'm not ready for. And I can't let that distract me from the only thing that really matters. Finding the truth. October 9:30 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. He's back to here again, yes. In the name of Our Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court into this section again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Hartway here, present, who stands accused of murder. Are the counsel for the prosecution and defense ready to proceed? Prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Benzie had his apprentice with him. His apprentice remembered lost. If I may, Lord Benzie. Yes, my lord. There appears to be someone standing at your side. Yes, my apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceeding will see the complexity in this case rises constantly. Temperature? Really? I therefore instruct my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of this trial, even though he doesn't need to, open the coca bottle. But oh well. And the smooth running of liquid refreshment by the looks of it. The way he holds himself, the way he moves, could be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know that. This is so hard. Anyways, it was seem the prosecution done a fine job in responding to the demands to the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene of the day in question. Yes, my lord. I intend to recall him as a witness shortly. Very good, very good. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen as ready to represent the will of the people in this court today, are you ready for willing to proceed? Of course, why not? I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty. I do so, despite deception and deceit, I felt it so real. To take the man's life of the conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not tangent to the law. Artifacts are just to further out of the god, if you ask me. We have to listen to what the but so it depends on let's go on. That's it, is it? Was it unlikely this time, my day? Was it like this on our... We're gonna go back to sleep. If all parties are ready to proceed, you may be getting all done it. Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Assistant, thank you. Yesterday, at the Great Exhibition grounds, the evidence of the primary importance of this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, or whatever thing you call that thing because it's so bloody long, which was installed on an experimental stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion expected by an unknown person or person. What? Explosion? This is an outrage. You're gonna shoot somebody? No. What? You're not mistaken. Please put down your gun. There's nothing to be of concern. But anyways, yes, I heard his grave news yesterday. Shortly, I'll submit a report into my office in the evening. I read that the machine was blasted so many areas and the workers reduced to ashes in the flames. I have here a photographic print of the scene taken of the wake of the explosion. It shows what little remains of the machine. Yes, a terrible business. Well, what a very nice soul. Wow, somebody could fall down for that. He did it to destroy the evidence, did he? That Enoch Drebber. The god will take this for print as evidence counsel. Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was ablated from existence. As such, this would become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence on to which draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity. Indeed. A most unfortunate state of affairs, even we are all oblivious, but whatever. However, one thing's really clear. The victim's death was the result of the action of the accused. Of that, we can be certain. For it was the accused himself who was operating the machine who ultimately caused its loss of control. Objection! As Lord Van Zix rightly says, there is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the event that transpired. He acknowledged that Mr. Asman died as a result of the accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknown to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, counsel, if you please. The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odie Asman. So what exactly were these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intended to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence to the defendant. Thank you, counsel. The position of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord Van Zix, summon your first witness, please. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. Get in here. Wait, state your name and occupation to the court. Name Enoch Drebber. Occupation hard to pin down, I would say. See that black monocle? Yes, that's what I feel. I've seen that couple. Oh, you too? I have exactly the same feeling myself. Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a Waxwell model is an almost externalized sounding business. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assume. Cleave it from your mind. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago? The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you can say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, was there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine using this experiment. Also, our investigation ended. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it. In precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. Then the court will be very interested to hear your thoughts about your machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last. What? Good gracious, do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew. Objection! But we already established that the machine was nothing more than a puzzle for an elaborate conjuring. Objection! You established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same alcohol could have been produced by the means of stage trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more. But... We prosecuted long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. No. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago to Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would require a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. A body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give an impression that something had moved when in reality it hasn't. It's a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substitution. The original with a fake at some point of the performance. Who would I like to say you have managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. It is my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring awfulness, but such talent do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims, namely the construction of what by all accounts must have been an extremely complex science machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought to the true nature of your past exploit to light, Mr. Drebber. Indeed, my lord. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elite government and grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches of that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witnesses' workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talents in science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted that out ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation with successful skill. Though I may have sought the secrets for some deception of the snivel talented scientists in the past. Would you therefore assess that the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by the misuse of the science? This guy really is the bane of all jackasses. Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. Okay. Before that, I need to check something first. Met the young professor on. Well, I can present this, but I need to make sure that I got it right first. I got this one right. Let me read the blueprints. Hold on, it says head first, but the bird cage that we have was... Hold on, I'm not sure first. Before I do anything, let's save first. Just in case I make a big mistake on it. Okay. Okay, let's try this. I might try to press, but let's see what happens if I do this. Objection! Okay, there we go. You say head first, but why does it crack me below? We examined the birdcage that crashed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of the damage. All the breakage in the wood are the base of the birdcage, not the top. What do you say? That's the opposite way that it should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the seam is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two birdcages in play that day, in which there was some point switched during what wasn't a scientific explanation at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery. Good gracious! Explain yourself with this. Well, if we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage singularly indicates that it crashes tail first into the tower. But multiple witnesses reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to the balloon flying over the stage, following a spontaneous explosion, at an altitude of some 60 feet above the ground, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeds to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reporters amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable. But the victim's neck was broken. Objection! He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However, he felt it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. Everything. Scientists analyze of events from the persecution there. Though, to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebra actually. It wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Bentley. This one is clearly a swindler and one who deceives a person, no friend of his. If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. Ah yes, and that's one more point. The defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't Jake. as a certain truth very plain demonstrates. What?
It seems to me that the consternation will have better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drebber, will you amend your testament details of this truth?
Of course, we must treat the matter scientifically at all. Nearly had him there. God damn it. Look, I'm doing a robot dance. The kinesis mechanical took place because there was nowhere else to defeat how far the birdcage to have fallen from. Oh yes, we do.
Objection!
Oops. That last thing, I got it wrong. What? Ouch.
What I think is that the whole thing is... Oh, yes!
Wait, I thought it's the hole then. Wait, what? The kinesis because there's no one else to repeat. Wait, I thought I got it right. Hold on. What? Okay, I think I'm making... Did I... Yeah, there's a hole there and... What? Wait, I'm checking. 30 feet fallen. You sure it's not this? Because there's a freaking hole here and we can say it's that. What? I can't be say it's this one, so the thing is not. We can't present this thing again. This one?
Objection!
You seriously? Is the map itself? Not the whole? What? This is a diagram of like Samantha's stage and its surrounding. We know that somehow the birdcage appears in the mid-air before falling down to this tower. Ow! A fall about 30 feet or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of the 30 feet.
No! Well, it appears the defense has no possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel.
Yes, my lord. Of course.
You will indicate the place which you are referring to on the same diagram. The alternate location for which the birdcage could have possibly fallen down the requested 30 feet.
Obviously, it's over here. If there's a hole here, that means...
Take that!
If we had fallen from there, the birdcage would have plummeted the same 30 foot distance.
Objection!
If that's my learned friend's claim, I suggest he demonstrate for the court personally. Huh?
And you may consider this a party game, counsel.
What the Really? The deck on 30 feet anyway. Okay.
Don't give me reconsider the next.
The goal was 30 feet. Okay, I'm winning. Wait, I need to save this. Okay, next time I'm gonna save, because otherwise I'm gonna screw this up real lot. It's not here? Well, you could have fallen inside here. Let's try this again.
Take that!
I do not know why the hell that thing did not work, because he could fall down here. So why the hell is this inside? You know what? I'm worried about it. The place I'm referring to is here.
Double dots! Why the birdcage? All the birdcage would have been to begin with.
Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage, but what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself.
So go on, counsel.
It turns out that the experimental stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram in fact, you see it's about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam.
Ow!
And the moment the floor in the stage gave away and we assumed there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact there was not one birdcage but two.
Objection!
My learned friend, there's no evidence that the stage had such control in its design. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself is true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment and look at the photographic pin of the scene following yesterday's explosion.
Good lord, another grid from the floor of the machine's undone.
Yeah, I was wondering why that. When I presented, it should have said it's because of this. Never mind, I think it got me good for some reason. Yes, most likely blown up from the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Mr. Drebber. It was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of this machine that matters. The machine decided to take Mr. Asman's life and lay the blame firmly at the professor's door, something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Objection!
Assistant, thank you. Let me have a drink. Okay, my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertion. Damn it, I should take a drink, but well, the prosecution would like to crush the defense argument slowly but surely. What? Your argument fails to hold water on two counts. Two? Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every irrelevant member of the staff of the exhibition has attested to that.
And I believe members of the Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty every public experiments.
In other words, Mr. Drebber has no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of birds.
Objection!
But I've already explained why he wouldn't need to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disfigured the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivalent on that point. And the second flaw in your assertion is the distant lack of motive. Why would this man who wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. Motive? I have to think of everything myself? Jeez. Go, please. Please, I have here a contract provided by the witness.
What contract is this, Lord Ramsey?
The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered the victim. Mr. Asman reads, Mr. Drebber is received 30% of all remunerations from government grants on income.
30% certificate very favorable contractual conditions.
But there was one very important provision reported on the clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold his discharge on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I have nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric copy said in fact. Need I say more, the witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit such allegation crimes. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. Damn it! Oh shit! Damn it! Ouch!
It seems the defense assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord Venzi, you will submit the contract and evidence, please. Thank you. It could be very important later, but well.
It's true. Wait. Contract between Mr. Asman. We invest into blah blah blah. Hey, nice signature. E. Drebber. If Drebber had no opportunity to switch the birdcage under the station with the one in the Crystal Tower, he couldn't have done it. And in the name and in case I have no idea what this is more than might have been. There's one aspect of the argument that still holds true, however. There were two birdcages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right line, Mr. Novel. I have no doubt there are other aspects you assertion that are undeniable truths to.
Well, it would seem that the defense had no more rejoinder to offer.
Well, I simply must say I'm a little surprised. I came to you to testify about the machine abuse and my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I recover.
Objection!
At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only one birdcage, yet now we know there must have been two. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the couple. Get to the point. The stage demonstration was constructed and set up it is entirely by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpires. So if circumstances mean it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved.
Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. Mr. Drebber has an accomplice.
Objection!
An accomplice now. Well then, I presume you're prepared for what's to come. Now that you're accusing not only the witness but someone else of the most serious of crimes. If this accusation turned out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equal serious punishment for your slander.
Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this court and formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter?
What do I do here? At the moment, this is a little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Drebber has an accomplice or even he really is the culprit here. One way or another though, I have to make my position clear as a lawyer. So what my stance is going to be, did Drebber have an accomplice or not? If I back down, I might be screwing myself. Hold on. I'm thinking. No, we couldn't. Hold on. I'm thinking. Autopsy report. Wait. If this is true about the two bird cages and his involvement in everything, then don't tell me that coroner is something to do with it. The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow, the bird cages must have switched. Everything points to that. Yet, according to the coroner's report, there's not a possibility. Yeah, this is the thing that I'm concerning. And that inconsistency itself is a clue.
Oh, so.
Wait, so first, just in case I. Is that why he's still? Wait, I think I may know something. My lord?
You have to receive a stock money already. If you are nevertheless determined, then I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
Well... Courtney Snice?
Take that!
The name of the person is question is... What's wrong, my nipperness friend? Surely fear doesn't bite your tongue now. It's a little late for that. Of course I'm afraid. And after all, naming her is a capacity is definitely going to make waves, a lot of waves. I could very turn every single person in this courtroom against me, and I'm going to get an ass kicking. I'm sure we'll be alright, Mr. Naoto. Thank you, Miss Susato. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. Alright then, here goes. You kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, counsel, now! The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Sight.
What in place are you talking about? Dr. Sight?
The head of the forensic team and the coroner who conducted the autopsy of the victim? What? Are you been smoking? We know that there were two book cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of the huge crowd of the spectators, and the air was immediately sealed off. And everyone, police officer included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It can only have been in the team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Sight be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. Oh yeah, I'm going. I think this is the time we're going to have a summation examination.
You got a lot of nerves, lord. Standing up here, dragging the yard's neck into the mud, you piece of shit. You want me to shoot you right now in the face just to end your life?
I didn't mean to.
I know that Robert very well. There's no bad dead woman out there. How dare you call her criminal, you scum!
My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than his ends at night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another great problem with your argument, on which the prosecution demands you address at once. A great problem? Oh my word! Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What?
Certainly, if the bird cage contains the body double of the victim was exchanged for another, the cage must also have contained a double.
And yet, no missing person or accidental death of anyone even remotely resembling the victim has been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of the body double for Mr. Asman. That's true. If my argument is that there were two book cages, then there must also have been one person inside each. I don't know if I got the answer to it yet, have I? Why can't I reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? Present evidence, I think Enoch Drebber has stolen something and so he got... Very well, the defense will address my learned friend's concern by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Asman's body double.
Oh gracious, evidence? I do hope this isn't a filibuster concert. The council is expecting the name.
If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witness would only have seen them from 60 feet away. So who was that in period out of the explosion, some 18 meters above the spectators? Aha! The body double inside the second birdcage was... this one?
Take that!
We know that the victim, Mr. Asman, was in the birdcage that's situated inside the kinetics machine on the stage, and therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What could it be saw as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the Crystal Tower?
Yes, counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version of the events.
and the body double inside the second birdcage was in fact. Wait, oh shit, I'm going. It's alright, Mr. Naruto. You're ready for this. I know, but I'm getting nervous. I'm ready to shit myself. Just do yourself and come out with it. Thank you, Mr. Saku. I needed that. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as me see that thing. Where that thing that? What? Where the hell you get that thing from? What? Seriously, did you just drag? How the hell this statue was brought here? Did you just brought it here just to for the next draw or something, or what? You know what? The thing there, or whatever magically that appears, but I'm sorry I cannot see it. Please don't kill me. What?
Objection!
Open your eyes and look into mine, openness friend. Don't make me come there. Okay, tell Tengu. What are you playing at? And where the hell do you get that damn statue from? Stand firm now, Mr. Kid. This is the time to show Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago.
Objection!
You started by listing the leader of the forensic investigation team as accomplice in this crime, and now you move into the indecisive waxwork. Yes, that's about the size of it, but why? And why did this waxwork? It still looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. Shit. What? Just days before Professor Harry performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from matter to spell.
Did you say abducted?
And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returns to the museum. Well, only half of it, but the heads to stay there, so then the timing.
Is that true, Mr. Drebber?
Shit. At first, I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and given it back again, but now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman.
Shit!
Objection!
Okay, that's it. Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense assassination proposal? That witness fabricated the fast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he did some sort of collision with the country's finest coroner on public stage, in front of the vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model in that there's no way resembling the victim. Are we really going to believe that this far-fetched tale? What do you say?
Objection!
Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible. My lord.
If I need to speak here, please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman.
Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement.
Very good, in that case. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you stay alone before the court to hear now.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
Guilty!
Kill me!
You know what that means? It's time for summation examination. Whatever. So, as indicated by the form, the jury has reached this consensus.
I knew that was going to happen. We shall get to this, Mr. Autopsy, and uncover some true new events along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual, and see if I and pursue them to change their minds.
The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Because why not? Since I've known this man for a long time. He's still wearing this the Japanese suit. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Forbot?
We are, my lord.
Very well. In that case, I ask you to state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you have decided that the defendant is guilty of the crime in which he is charged. You know, he should wear back the British outfit. Because when you wear the British outfit, he doesn't get summation examination, you know that? Anyways.
I know the woman for years, she's never been accomplice to anything.
It's utter nonsense to come to think. They will ever be connected by one another. Whatever, I'm reading my newspaper.
Oh dear, is this more troubling? But surely the waxwork and stone is nothing to do with the corner, is it? I am, and my own brothers with members of the police. I do not less.
Oh, sir, no rigorous proof that the wax was ever beside the birthplace is conjecture.
Accusing someone without right to evidence, it is not proper journalism. I won't have it. Well, this is the first time I see it goes to 6 instead of 1.
Somewhat unsurprising, except for the jury officer who butted in for first. You know, this.
Oh, sorry, I'm just want to cut the chase before I go to sleep again.
It seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceed has polarizing opinion, even though we do not know what the fuck is this thing doing here in the first place. No, seriously, how the hell did the moment he says there's a waxwork model, it appears suddenly? Come on. Are we not gonna... Anyway, moving on, sorry.
Given that this phrase is obscure and its built in no way resemble that for victim, I can only applaud my learned friend Timuri at the suggestion that it has Mr. Asman's body. Yes, the applause is deafening, and yes, I know it seems extraordinary. But that's the point. That's what I have strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realized. What are you rethinking, Mr. Naoto? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it has to be this mod. Really, a reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced. It's something far more significant than whether or not the model will look like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this.
Anyway, if you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination.
Yes, my lord. Alright, let's get that. Okay. Wait, are we going to do this guy first?
I don't know what my teeth.
Okay, let's keep pressing and see.
Hold it!
The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason. Yeah, I agree.
I'm a couple, lad. It's a compass distraction to bend the rules sometimes we go on here. What's with doing that?
Where do I start?
I've been working on my yard for 40 odd years.
That's even more than I thought.
We already have a metropolitan police state service in town for 70 years, you know. But time has changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started, it was wrong. We had to fight crime, and we have to fight to win the public trust as we did. Well, and when we did. Forensic science was in infamy too, even more than it did now, and he spearheaded the revolution.
Dr. Sai, you mean?
That's right. About 10 years ago now, it was when I was still a youngish puppy on the beat. That was when she started making the name of herself as the top last call. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you won't hear my complaint. That's what we all drink back there, I tell you.
Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air?
Of course, after we're all out We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of him, we were full of him. Don't worry, this gun doesn't have bullets, but you know rubber bullets can hurt you silly.
That's coming across loud and clear.
Hold it!
But we are only just started understanding the case.
Not caring.
What do you mean, yes, sir?
The man behind those models on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's a real policy for you.
That's not relevant to this case, is it?
You're wrong with that. Because it was Dr. Cyrus in charge of examining the bodies. And there was evidence arising from her work that leads to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible.
Oh,
That's right. Oh! That woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she is somewhere involved in this murky business is a lot of old tosh.
I thought it was up to me to press the jury, not the other way around you. Game, why do you do this? I do this in the trouble, but surely this works out.
Hold it!
Why would you assume that? Well, quite simply because that uncertain swindler has no relation with the woman, does he? True, as it stands, we do not know any connections. Oh gosh, but it would be delighted romantic if they were somewhat up to have a mutual interest in the waxwork. Romantic, aye. A woman of society, as such myself view everything in terms of relationship, you know. Well, you learn something new every day. If you don't want to, one might wonder about the possible relations between the defendant and the coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there. Oh, this is so cute. This woman may be a student and will give it her credit. But as the woman stands, then perhaps there is really some confliction between the waxwork and the civil. Yes, I agree. As soon as we have enough, even if the verbal connection should be the first to know. What's wrong with you, Dan? What sort of problem? Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing on the street. Right, I see. Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work to close proximity in our audience. So we perform our grand magics in parks, on street corners, and like that. But the police use...
Not in my day!
What? But the police use as any excuse to make our lives difficult. What? You have something to say?
Excuse me!
What? Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Autopsy?
Who are you calling? Who are you calling my mass? Who are you calling my mass murder, you asshole? You want me to shoot you with this lava bullet?
Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him.
I don't look like that, man. You want to be locked up, Sonny? Well, we have a rule say shoot first and ask later. Questions later, but I'll make that an exception to.
Thanks, Mr. Holmes, you asshole. Can I have a word with you after this? You don't realize I'm up here, right? Perhaps we can move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response of what juror number 3 had just said. And clearly you do.
Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this.
How's like this?
We worked our fingers to the bone on the public's trust to win it. And by God, Joe, we are the people respect us back then.
Respect you?
No one will call the coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right, especially when Dr. Coffee Stevens put her name to...
What? Did you say the mother or... What?
She was the best of the best, and the apple of the eye.
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Scotty Stevens? Is it the mother?
Sorry, got a bit carried away there.
Stevens is Dr. Sai's maiden name. Oh, her maiden name. So that's was before she was married. Oh, so that means it's her. So she's okay. Got it. Yeah. So there was a connection. Yeah, the killer report was thought as the mother's. Who is this person? Like, it's herself, Courtney Steve. So it's Courtney Steve's size. Okay, okay.
Oh, of course, yes. Silly me, it's sight now, is it?
Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently.
Anyways, the point is, those were the great days of policy, not like now.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change the statement to include that name?
Well, yes, I don't see why not. Sure got this segment.
Okay, let's back to the... Okay. Hold on. Kissing someone without a... Okay.
Hold
At
it!
least this guy, because if I can't find any pressing evidence, we're gonna be really shit line. Are you kidding? The whole instantaneous kinetic demonstration was trick.
What I did, but there was more than one way to pull a rabbit out of the hat, isn't there? Like Geometry had explained to me days ago after we had lunch together. So, yeah.
Sorry?
I grant you, given that the cage appears from obvious explosion, there will be no need to use root muscle. But if the waxman used the copper web, please have the decency to make it look like a victim.
I'm not sure exactly how much criminal is are governed by decency.
Okay. Well, anyways, the point is, if you're going to make a claim of an wax will be inside the bird cage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow resident.
That's right. That's right, I've been up here a long time, and I know all this bullshit the drivers are making box excuses. But I'm not like everybody else. I need to see evidence then.
If that person meant his mind, he could be changed if he managed to present suitable evidence. Evidence that Professor Waxman was inside. Can I put this down? Oh wait, the glass. Actually, I had something I'd like you to see.
Oh? I must warn you that I firmly believe it is only wise to trust men in my court. Well, even though he's excused, but... So give me your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to sense of stupidity here.
So you don't trust anyone in black? Look in the mirror must be very tiring. You know what? I should have wear back my own British outfit. Jeez, god damn it. I do have some evidence that proves the Waxwell was inside the British, namely...
Take that!
What's this? A piece of glass? So this isn't usually a check of glass?
Yes, it's a piece of broken glass we found inside the jacket of the Waxwell. As you can see, it's not ordinary glass though, it's very thick, clear, made up for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower.
The crystal... Holy smokes!
Exactly, the centerpiece of the great evidence where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the bird cage fell from above and smashed through the window of that special glass.
From whence this small piece of glass originated, is that it?
Precisely. So, what do you have to say? Now that the clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you.
Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coat as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't be come to it. Sorry for that, I've been racist, but in the light of which you've shown me 3 years, I feel obliged to change my position on this matter. In the name of case June number 4, you will amend your statement now, please.
Yeah, okay, I think we can pick this one. Hold on. Just in case I BS it last time. I'm not going to screw up this one, so... Alright, time to pit. Number 4.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious. Two were statement you refill concepts.
If you could put down a comment, Mr. Number 5. You mean me? You point out that it's wrong to make accusations without evidence, but the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second luggage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you. Is that right? Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument, right? I don't understand that much besides Colonel Cup, to be honest. Colonel the Cup. Of course you don't. Seriously, I can understand if you bring like 12, 16-year-old guys here, but come on, why do you need to bring a 5-year-old girl who doesn't understand what is the meaning of that?
If I could interject here.
Please do, sir.
Now that the session of yours is about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong for me as a man of science not to pursue the matter further. So, there you go.
Well, me too then. Sorry? If the brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See? I am. I wouldn't dream of getting this Connor Cup, and anyone who's got stuff in between the ears. Well. Okay. Success, if you call it that. Okay. Wait, what about the first guy? Just... Oh yeah!
Hold it!
Oh, sorry. She was a legendary, was she?
What do you say? That woman is still the best coroner in the land. Head of the forensic investigation team, are you deaf?
Legendary was your description, sir, not mine.
Rubbish! That word never passes my lips. I never described anyone there. Not if they were still in the game. If I may, you just said that, sir. I heard that too.
I heard that too. I think the point you're trying to make is that the site is an extremely talented card. Would that be fair?
It would. It would have been fun if you were trying to drag the legendary woman's reputation to the mud.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. Legendary. God, it's so hard to talk to this guy. Anyways. Alright. The only person I can think of this for. Because this guy is not gonna concede. This fellow, I don't think is...
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other.
Good gracious. I do too statement to refill concerns.
So, juror number 2. Oh gosh, me? What can I do? I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. He spoke to light in the maiden's name of the coroner, Dr. Sai, which in turn had revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before. Well, naturally, as a woman, most likely I find such connection and relationship irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I failed to see what you mean. Dr. Sai's middle name is Stevens, and though the name in the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. Defense had the evidence to prove it. My goodness, evidence you say? How utter and thrilling.
Go on, sir, Dr. Quality better overlook that last we met. I'm very much shocked there's a suit subject to your claim.
Of course, Mayor. I would like to ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly linked Dr. Sai to the mass murder of Leslie.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago.
A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does they have?
It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the wax with the killer known as the Professor.
What professors? But the man was a capital offender, so...
That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens. Oh my, Courtney Stevens?
I got like.
It appears that the professor autopsy was conducted by Dr. Side 10 years ago, and a few days ago, Mr. Drebber was very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Matter to Spell, a waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim Mr. Asman at all. And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events? Absolutely, I'm sure. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of the link that we have yet to uncover between Dr. Robinson and Mr. Enoch Drebber. Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicious hanging out over the yard's best corner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here, uphold justice in the end. So, here you go. Take your win. Thank you, Gonzo, that will do. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall lin has changed. Two jurors now called guilty against four who called not guilty. Accordingly, the court would have failed to reach a consensus at the time, and the trial must continue.
We did? Oh, well done, Miss Narada. Another one for victory.
A waxwork of the despicable professor, used as a body double from the victim in this quite extraordinary case. Even though I do not know how the hell did you break this thing for the first place.
If I may,
Yes, Bailey, what is it?
we were supposed to try to, to bring this to the court. Sorry, pardon me, sir, but we were supposed to bring. The next case is supposed to be Enoch Drebber tried to steal from the waxwork later on, so we kind of bring that thing on.
Oh, that's... my God, but seriously, you shouldn't bring this thing so dramatically about bringing that thing down. But anyways, I must say, it's extremely hard to believe that such a could be possibly true. However, it would appear that it does lead one further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber to the site. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove that. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the least involvement of waxwork in that case, then the prosecution calls for the honor of the model to be summoned as a witness.
Your Honor.
Madam to spell. Really thought that Lord Ramsay would object to this whole line of inquiry.
However, I concur. Make arrangements for managers but appear as the witness with immediate effect.
Oh, don't worry, she's here. Listen carefully, my friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box.
The court shall adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witnesses and prepare for her to take the stand.
Madam to spell, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord. Alright. Oh. Okay, hold on, I'm taking a second first. Man, this is long again. Anyways, hold on a second. Oh, there's a lot of people here now. Okay. Let me drink a little bit of water first before we continue. All right, All right, let's continue. 24th October, 11:53 a.m. Old Bailey, defendant's MP chamber. The Knight Errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Jones? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask. What the fuck is going on? This makes no sense. What is this professor business all about? I mean, I'm the professor, but not that. Who? What? Doesn't look like a professor I ever met before. Who is he? Of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Dude, are you trying to pin on me? Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. I knew the monster would come knocking at your door. My heart was a bit. As it turns out, Lord Van Zix is even more intimidatingly tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he? Yes, so true. His great friend from university in the dock. And now the waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life and appeals to. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reed prepares to foresee that kick on the teeth. An extraordinary move of your part, my little, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate. Especially that Automo thing. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes, in what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Sight, and Lord Van Zix. It seems that everyone in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty seat all alone with no intersection to any others. Excuse me. So you're the piece of shit who called me out. That's oh shit, I'm in shit trouble, right? So you're the one who called me out, huh? I am going to leave, bye. Oh, my choice started, bye. Dr. Cotty's side. Nisi Stevens, good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was a very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10 years ago autopsy report from Wrexham, didn't you? Why would you seem such a thing? Because Gleason told me. Oh. I should have paid him more, but you're not telling that. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpels. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfection. A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it is happened, so said, during our 6. And I've accused you on being accomplice in what happened. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that you will take a stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zix won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden me. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the professor's case. But please don't make it the mistake of thinking you get any information about it out of me. Attempting to hide it from the truth. That's cowardice. I've always fought crimes in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, not at all. And that's all I can say. So, good day to you, sir. I'll be watching in the gallery. Why can't I say that she's the killer, please? We want to pin on Enoch Drebber right now, but Lord Strongheart, why do you make the job worse for us? So mention that to this Pandora box. Whatever does that all mean? There's no really cause for concern, I assure you. When the trial resumes, the meaning will become to all apparent whether you like it or not. Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public area. The edge of my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Yes, one word of warning if I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it all out of your sight. Proceed like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? To the full, whatever may comes to pass. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good. I shall make myself scarce then. Bye-bye. I purchased a bottle more calmer earlier so I shall be gnawing on and as you gnaw away the truth. It caught me inside. Stevens, let me see with you. What did the warning from Mr. William, especially the bit of whatever may comes to pass? It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. October 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey Coil. Now just pray there's not going to be another summation examination or this is going to be awesome coming up. Anyways.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvenes the capacity of this courtroom. Party, grant of the defense and the prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court also aware, the case is under our supervision to begin the damaging incident of the Great Exhibition. We now find ourselves employed in the details of a convicted fellow who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectations.
This does seem to be fate of all trials in which this nipperness is involved, my lord.
So then, let us begin our explanation of the defense's assertion that the Waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Vengeance, are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Dispels?
Not at all. She is in the antechip as we speak and ready to be summoned.
Very well, bring over in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Dispel to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, and I'm sure he is, it means he must have an accomplice in Dr. Silent. And what connects the head of them is the Waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's the tenuous link, admittedly, but at present is all we have to go on. State your name and occupation for the court, please.
My name is Madame Asmal Tuspel. I am a waxwork artist and the proprietor of Madame Tuspel Museum of Waxwork. Don't mind me, I'm trying to build a model statue of the famous Sherlock Holmes. You will have to pardon of me working as I testify. My new exhibition must open very soon. Oh, so he finally get a statue, does he? Now that there are two of them in the world, great! Oh my, what expression is she carving on that face?
Scroll, please. A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oui, that is true. At first, we believe that it has been kidnapped.
A waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true ransom. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of the murder victim.
At present and is no more than a conjecture problem posed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman.
But of course, I know him well. He is the part of my earliest personage exhibits. I detest to say what his opinion, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps that their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the mass visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the door.
This is absurd.
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath a mask, but clearly it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed, the man's identity was never put properly. After all,
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a close-guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of Thor the exhibition could get his hands on that information.
Credo mange. It would seem that you are unaware of the two spells principles.
What principles?
The family two spells have always prided itself of sculpting its model a la perfection. Every detail into the visage is flashed with complete fidelity. Et voilà our principles. There is a well-known legend about the two spells waxing from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Dispel family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that's true. Was it 2 years ago? I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes of calling her actually the guillotine side. You are correct. The model of this display is still today the Halls of Horrors. These dispels will have nothing to obtain a paper replica of our subjects.
hear me, or someone system with tendency of purpose.
It's the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask, the true visage of the killer is there?
This is ludicrous. In all question.
The professor spread traveled through Great Britain. As a result, Madame Tuspel's special exhibition remains extremely popular even today. The killer, emerging from his own grave, is a sight to behold. You should come.
Anyway, I think, madam, it will be beneficial to hear from your former testament on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre murder, and you were personally involved in this creation.
With pleasure. The special exhibition in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the cat and the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approaches, I was very worried I could be discovered.
Wait, what? What? So,
The gravedigger, the man sanctioned this.
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance of my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did they do, huh?
so you truly saw the face of the monster.
Naturally, I was aware of the time that his identity was a secret, but the spell would not be the spell if we did not insist on absolute fidelity on our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen this special exhibit to the museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the model is emerged from his own grave and
The scene is this was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article.
Okay, let's see. Was the ball masquerade to blame for the great blaze? The fire that engulfed the popular theatre continues to draw attention as reports that Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself visited The Royal Italian Authority is back. To sign an awful words of condolence to the theatre's owner, Mr. Frederick Yee. The theatre had been under lease to the famed magician John Henry Anderson, and there is some speculation that the blame for the firelight squally with him for the instance on holding his ball masqué there. Could his magic trick have played a trick on him, costing a sitting in grave and blah blah blah. It was the most detailed account that what happened as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. A man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. Yeah, I'm gonna read this and see if I can find any clues. Oh, really now? Look at that time. The public enjoys absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have to repeat this scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And its material from the exhibit was stolen from days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before here here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This wax will link Drebber to Dr. Sai, and there is have to be some reason for that. This which had yet to come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I prove that Dr. Sai and Drebber were in this crime together. Okay, since I can't... Hey, I got my bar refill, thank you. Okay, should have asked everything. And the rumor would be... A 10-year-old tale now. One that no Londoner would be able to get.
Alright, I just know what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else. Yes, the story that now disappeared. The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the such extraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. It was in the low gate cemetery behind the prison, in the dead night after the execution of the killer. The interned professor slipped back in the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpses and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran from his life. The corpse climbed out of his own grave? And there's somebody shot him? Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor, perhaps nothing more than just a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why in every newspaper across the capital. But it was just a story. I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it? Oui, this special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, mind if I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It's not possible for the dead to come back to life. Sorry? 10 years ago, I was there at the Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the professor was killed by the hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. I see.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
Is that really true every waxwork in your museum then?
It is, assuming that subjects that, of course, live subjects have to cooperate in similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know?
What sort of letters?
When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Komuka.
No!
My museum is famous, monsieur. To make me made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals a symbol of statue.
Because nothing says hardened criminals better than wax.
And it's thanks to one killer in particular that my museum is gained such popularity in London. I refer to the stars of the special exhibition. Of course, the professor.
Whose form you claim to now have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse.
There are no exceptions to the principles of the spells.
Hold it!
Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietors of this repository of novelists was blinded by monetary greed.
It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That's why I had to sculpt him to record this history. This is a raison d'etre of the Spell Museum.
But if the matter was completed in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the jury present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The professor's identity is a national secret.
I understand. And now that the truth has about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum, we don't tread very carefully, madam.
That could be another interesting characteristic of my family, I think, don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse.
Oui, exactamente.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be.
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxed and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly.
Oh dear, what a horrible thought.
Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night, I was alone, and as a consequence, I had missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It's because of rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis?
It's a name given to a phenomenon that occurs in the recent deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours past death, the muscle in the body begins to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then, from that point, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when the body is discovered. Well, that was an indication. It was slightly scary one. As the manifestor said, rigor mortis commenced 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaws.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Before that time, the mouth fall opens, and it's very difficult to do my work.
It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses.
I wonder what that information is about. It's just
well, I just
that information about rigor mortis they say you share us. Would you really include that in your formal testimony? I believe it could be safely received. Of course, I do not mind now. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the episode recorded becomes seemingly
grave. There's no time for joke, Mr. Toro. Although,
Puns aside, Madam kinda amend your testament discussed.
Didn't you? It took me a...
Hold it!
I think press 1 and see how it works. Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described, whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it was started at the jaw about 3 hours post death. Is that right? Oi, Center, of course the exact duration depends a little on CC. I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject. No. That is the only element of knowledge in the field of legal medicine. Well, I have no idea about it, but maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science. I could ask my father to give a very simple primer if you like. No, I think corpses should be in your domain. I mean, not good with them. Oh dear, I'll do my very best. No?
Hold it!
You said that dawn was approaching. What's the time of the day then, approximately? Well, I could not say, but when I left the cemetery with my utensil wax, the morning light was becoming visible. The execution took place on 72, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed, it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early. The fact is, I have very little time, so I finished my work in half an hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, because if somebody had discovered me then, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry. It is me, or does Mr. Shaw seems to be taking shape more quicker now?
You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madam.
I wonder, is it? Well, just Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture and the early sunrise, could you include them to your testimony? I believe they may be significant. Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Miss Naldo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 morning would be absolutely unmeasured at home. That's not quite what I mean, Miss Cindy.
Earlier made it over to sleep there, madam.
With pleasure, my lord. I'm a little puzzled. Hold on. Should we read this? It didn't say the time, so I'm not sure what it is. Hello? Isn't this Odie Asman? I just noticed the Odie Asman here. Wait, where's the contract earlier? Yeah, I noticed the contract. Ah, that's why they got the freaking thing here. Odie Asman's the reporter? Hold on. Wait, this says here is midnight. How come it says that? Should it be 3? Oh, sorry. So, that's all I have to go on. What's your feeling, Mr. Aldo? For some reason, Successor went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if this is really true, then the professor is the only one we know that linked us. So, I'm pretty sure that practical must be a clue to this mystery somehow. In that case, we must use this custom measure to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, this should revert their learning and the trial will be over soon. Well, I do not want a second summation examination although this game wants me to, but oh well, I agree, but seriously, uncovering what the professor had to do of all this means more work to walk than 6 the end of now. That's an impression I'm getting at. Yes, do I. After all, he has a profound connection with the professor as well. Yeah. Something is not right. Yeah, something is not right with her. Wait, I'm gonna try to save first because it took a long time for rigor mortis. Let's try. Because this one says it's at 7 midnight, so how the hell did she manage to come back?
Objection!
Okay, that did not work. Okay, that did not work. Okay, that did not work. Okay, that did not work out. Okay, let's try this one then.
Objection!
Okay, there we go. Okay, got that one wrong. Man with the spell. I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that the problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and the particular details in the report completely contradicts one another. Koi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tisper was creating her wacko impression just before dawn. At that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw in the first sign of rigor mortis 2-3 hours after death, but the man's chin was limp, so he cannot be dead for long. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Sai's report, it's quite clear that she stated the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17 June. No! If the professor indeed died at midnight at that day, then by the time he was opening his face, rigor mortis would already had set in. Oh yes, you are right. The chin would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner would make mistakes when recording the time of death. That variety is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible.
Order! Counsel, this is beyond fault. Not only did you indicate the author of the report to decide, but you also implicated members of the staff on a bar in prison where the execution took place. By her, extraordinary! None of my
Objection!
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial. What fact? The professor died that night. Without question. He did, of course he did. I moved the man's lip jaw on my own head. That was
Objection!
Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die? Are you insane? What exactly suggested that happened? It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Sai and the professor and the other one. Interesting. I have evidence that will explain. Explain what I'm suggesting that happened.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. Evidence always explain what really happened at night of the first execution.
Fuck. I'm trying to think here. Oh yeah, because of the maybe this one?
Take that!
It's the only thing I can think of. What happened that night? It's written in very plain sight in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of the night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a person coming back from the dead now? Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor assumed dead following his execution emerged from his grave and was killed.
Objection!
Don't be a fool. That was simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, as the artist said, there was a witness to what happened.
Oh, yes, indeed.
My Zeus, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, obviously that man made it all up.
I need a haircut. That was 10 years ago now. There will be certainly no hall of finding.
Objection!
On the contrary, my lord, he's dead, but we all know this witness well. What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you identify the person in question? And you know who came to see the utterly incredible event take place?
I'm all wondering why Odie Asman is there. Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say he's right here before my very eye.
You were so released in that counsel. Who is this alleged witness that staggered us 10 years ago?
Hold on. Before I do anything, I think I need to. I need to save this so I won't fuck this up. Like, I was going to say Enoch Drebber, but if I... Yeah, it's not the dead guy, so... Enoch Drebber.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber?
The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horror and Adam's Disperment Museum of Oxford recreates the decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbled upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is the 10-year-old Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order, surely not, counsel.
Drebber was there in Nogate Cemetery. What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame Tispa doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam, to your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the professor's wife from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No, but what that would mean? Madame Tispa, it would appear that you know the name Enoch Drebber. Ui, yes, I know it, but from long ago in the past. What?
Oh, good gracious. Is he your lover?
Explain yourself, tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in a single newspaper in London and told throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper which comes in the article I have shown in the report. It is saying that his full name was only published in the article.
Goodness me, yes, there it is. The university student who explains this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident in its student dorms.
Unbelievable. Yeah, but Odie Asman's. When I read the article, I want to meet the man. The discovery of the condemned criminal commonly acted live in the cemetery in the dead of the night would make a perfect exhibit for a house of horrors, whether it was true or not.
I see, so you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to discover a waxwork of the man with you.
Exactamente. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to do a model for the waxwork, and since that time, it had been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. So, 10 years ago, a young man appeared to the public about an extraordinary event he witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man still a waxwork model of the executed criminal. Ostensibly used as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork build is a poor match for the victim and his face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed to the crystal tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Miss Asman but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated Dr. Sai would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court had seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of a professor. Is that what you say? Dr. Sai put her name to a document confirming that the death of the condemned killer was still alive. A criminal who apparently resurrected was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double.
My heart, no.
My lord, this court must summon Dr. Sai to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning to the prosecution office, Dr. Sai is unable to participate in this proceeding. It is not the case.
She told us herself, did she? Please, Strongheart, tell this bandit thing say you're on your own. What's Strongheart? Yeah, Lost Strongheart with it. Lost Strongheart, sorry. The friend of us box you were warned about Mr. Professor Escape, but please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of the killer's execution 10 years ago. Surely nobody will want to get the bottom of that more than Lord Danzi. The prosecution calls for the instruction that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Danzi, the missive was issued from Lord Chief Justice.
Objection!
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on the policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Stock Sai both take the stand together.
Order. Very well, I will upon your request. Finally, send a subpoena with the immediate effect addressed to Dr. Sai of the forensic team investigation. The woman is compelled to attend Her Majesty's orders.
Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sai. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime would never have been committed. And just a stone throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Thank you for your attendance for such short notice, Dr. Sai. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks. You completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecution office. Betray is not my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's any hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom is concerned or disgruntled, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as will any prosecutor would is set. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Sai, as the investigation coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. Is it the belief the defense that you collaborate with each other and were both complete in this crime? And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definite evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer, known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the grave at night 10 years ago was some chilling fiction or reality, it will make you privy to the very great secret of Dr. Sight. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate you in an evil-scheming fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court, tell everything the truth of what you saw that night at Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student who was Sawyer. You can see the resemblance actually, can you, with the man in the display? I mean, surely he's not going to claim that he's really going to Sawyer, especially not after all these years. What was the research student after the University of London was he? And the bit too clever is good, if you ask me. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law too. Let's see. Very well then, if everyone was so wishes, let's be frank, I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Drebber, you will tell testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course, as you wish. Oh yeah. In the cemetery 10 years. The reason why I was in Lowgate Cemetery all 10 years ago was for a sporting mood, like shall we say. Yes, the illustration of the newspaper articles based on what I witnessed. But thinking back now, I realized I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted the model of me from wax, and I gave out my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute, you're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you had have a screw loose if you believe the corpse could come back from the dead. But so, you think this article is not worth a paper of this put on? I think it would be described as perfectly yes. The details in the article aren't true. It not an argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sight would have been working together. So he discreetly himself to cripple my argument. Damn it.
Allow me witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery for some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Pretty Robin, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is the rear of Barclay Prison, so among students at the university it has a reputation of being haunted by the ghosts of the condemned convicts.
Grave, I you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpse to sell, it's reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a thing of any valuable buried within the dead. So you were once of the so-called resurrectionists, a particular unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the repurposers.
That is quite beyond fair. You invite divine retribution, sir, you piece of shit.
Yes, well, I think I suffered reputation enough. The Daily Circle eventually unearthed my name and put it on the print. It caused me great many headaches. In the end, I have to leave the university. That was the only people with the bad grades of the Identify me ambiguous, I might add. I see. Out of interest, who drew this piece of shitting illustration article? Ah yes, it was the reporter exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, at the time, I deeply regret what I did. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, really foolish, really. Oh wait, where did that one come from?
Anyway, sorry. Your consent defense. You may proceed to cross-examination, but now.
At once, my lord. Alright, a cemetery 10 years ago.
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Truly, you only need to look at the grave. See, you got seen at my appearance, you got the answer to that. A lantern and spade. But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Can't imagine a hospital. A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there is no hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an intent in obtaining more dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we young research scientists have no money to work with, and I'm sure you can imagine. So we make sure superstitions arrangement with the hospital requires small medical student course. We will never take anything of the value for the graves. This is all for furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at the night spade hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect gravest of consequences. We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We need funds for research. I mean, come on, who will go running around I'll say, who wants to sell some dead bodies here? Who wants to sell some dead bodies here? Oh, you want the dead bodies? How much you want to sell for this? Or something like this kind of nonsense. Professor Hairbrain says the exact same thing.
I'm quite suspicious of the apparent levity with which you review some appalling behavior.
Well, if you want to know why I was at the local cemetery, that's the reason. I am not expected to end with the way it did that I regret to this day.
Hold it!
The strange happens thing in Logate Cemetery which you now deny. Not entirely. I went to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf, but they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very near arresting myself. So we went to the papers instead. I started the day with the London news, and surprisingly they didn't want to know either. In the end though, it was the reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, and they came to get my story. It was spread like the plague through the capital as the gossip liners lapped up the tail. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of them I can't turn out to be very introspective ghost stories. What about the article on the Daily Circus? That particular journalist found me in my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recount to him as exactly what happened that day that night. And for your description, he drew this illustration precisely. That's how I learned the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because of the report he told me so, I have no idea myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are what to snap around in matters that doesn't concern them. So the scene portrays in the illustration in a trade. Well, thinking back now, I realize I said that now.
Hold it!
What are you talking about? I think I explained already, didn't I? Logate Cemetery is the real popular tourism. So it was announced among us students at the university to be haunted by the ghosts of the condemned convicts. For For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And the two are only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life. When you saw it, actually saw it. You say you actually saw it, right? I said I seen it in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that provides that I counted the professor that night. Oh no, is there a material evidence that could show he really is the professor? Do we have anything at all, Mr. Otto? I know, I need to present that against an irritating backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life.
Hold it!
That young woman being nerves as well, of course. Precisely. I must say, I didn't expect to remember her again like that 10 years later. As I explained, I went by the name published in the article, and Komikala, I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with a penny to my name at the time, and the young lady put £5 in front of me. So you readily consent to having a wax wall of yourself made and gave permission for being put to display. I did. I should sell it with what I legally had to sell, I conclude. Ah, Hui, remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, Mietzi Pass. It's you? I can't say I remember. What was it? His camera. Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me when I made an excursion to any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir. To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. I have no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after the night, so I sold it.
I see.
I still have it, Monsieur. This is part of special exhibit in my house of horrors. I am very meticulous about such details, because it is spell away. It would seem that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with me for loading something at that night. Yes, interesting. Yeah, should I present the camera? Let me give her the... Wait, hold on. You were in the picture there, so...
Objection!
Okay, sorry, Mr. Drebber, I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night, 10 years ago. Oh dear, we seem to have an odds, but I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based on what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerged from the tomb wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in a close court ruling that the man where the master hides it, and it wasn't to be removed even during execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. Obviously, the provision of the mask was not public known.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you just heard, a lowly student at the University of London simply wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order, well, Mr. Drebber.
It's a vile scene, is it? If you look closely. As I already been at the pains to point out, I was totally petrified, which is why I had my head in such a political sight. And afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You still saying you didn't see it? Oh, come on. If you're stubborn sticking that to that story witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes were deceiving you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige. I can't believe he's not going to concede this point. What the ass? Well, as people says, the more they lie, the more it goes go deeper or whatever.
Hold it!
A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in 7th day that night, you know. Other boys naturally were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole, he ducked. My heart very stopped. So that's the terrifying side. I actually saw you see. You're claiming it was just another stool on a celebrated business as yourself. Many of the medicine students will wear masks at the mask to protect them from bacteria during sex dissection. Clearly, that fellow was using such masks to protect his autonomy. What do you say?
Objection!
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on saying, in the next second, the gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrection man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. We might assume that the section discovered in the miscreants at work was and fired upon one of them. If a grave digger has shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might be a rather big news, my lord. Oh, yes, but I can only assume there was an embellishment reported on by the reporter. What? Oh, I might ask it later. Embellishment? As explained earlier, most of which papers published about those events were fabricated nonsense. The journalists had to get them fashioning it into a horrifying ghost story. So, now you say there was no gunshots. It's like this. I'm afraid so. I mistakenly thought seeing a corpse coming back to life at the scene that's all really happened. Okay, time to question the sound.
Hold it!
Okay, time to skip this one. Bob.
Objection!
Strange.
Strange.
Excuse me!
Man of the spell. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. You're trying to keep. Damn it. Oh, ooh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thought. Would you be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significantly to use in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that's all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now? If you don't mind me to say, madam, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the 17th known, including the gunshot. Stop! You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a character, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Please, Madam Tuspel, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. None, you were very explicit about the details, about the mask that the figure was wearing, and the blood that splattered over you when he was shot. Enough! Dumb woman, you're making us all up.
No, Voodoo. Mr. Drebber.
Yes?
You refute that account just given by Mr. Tuspel.
Well, I have no recollection of everything. I have no recollection of everything in those things. Come on, do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, Consul. I will not permit baseless accusation to my courtroom.
Right.
Under those circumstances, I think it's best you supplement your testimony with a stable to clarify the position of this witness.
Very well. There was no gush. I wonder. Let me. It says something about the camera. Time to check the camera. This is where the photographic plate goes in, I think, is it? Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Drebber used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Method to Spell. She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible as well as she. I kind of forgotten about that. Oh my god, that's blood. You really love the conceptual interview, do you? Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely interesting. Almost irresistible too. Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't stop myself. It's similar to take it apart. That's what. Yes, father tells the time by Robin. This Thomas now. He's given up having a watch. Whoa, Professor McCoy. Hello. Look, Mr. Albert, what is it? On the billows just here, there seem to be some very dark stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you think. Anything else before we... Nothing else? Okay. Hey Drebber.
Objection!
There's blood. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera from the Fateful Night. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. I'm sorry, because it shows our video. Please don't come making us statues, okay? Anyways, it's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. Damn it. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed the lens extend forwards on the end of some bellows.
Hold
Like
it!
this. What's this? That's just there, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Wow, this is the first time I hear a Van Zig says hold it for a very long time.
Good lord, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a splatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemistry test. Isn't that right, Dr. Sack? It would appear to be difficult to determine if it was a human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, the test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose that Method to Spell testimony was correct, and now that day on the night question 10 years ago, you were splattered with blood on the gun. You were splattered with blood from the gunshot wound. And furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerge from this too. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Well, who's there? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, he's shooting someone.
Oh, damn it. Yes, my lord. And clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth out. The professor coming back would like to be exposed.
Whoa, Counsel. Who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about he saw his account?
I want to point out is this guy, but I think we haven't gone to that point yet, so hold on. question is, who's the witness he's trying to protect about? Sorry again,
Take that!
just trying. Obvious answer is Dr. Well, I wasn't blindly guessing, but why? Side.
Whatever do you mean?
Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. Oh, that's why, because of the fabricated autopsy report. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That will be an unprecedented
Objection!
This is beyond joke. Not point out that death cannot come back to life. What you suggesting would mean the execution never actually happened? Yes, the execution.
Objection!
Once the man is sent to the gallows, no one could escape. Not in Great Britain.
Objection!
And in fact, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging. Yeah, that's why, because of this freaking scandal.
Even were to be reached with counsel, the implication of misconduct would not stop the supervising corridor. It would taint the honor of the entire bureaucracy from the ground up.
And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Sai will consider any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even the means of being complicit in a crime.
You mean?
I mean that Dr. Sai wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxworm model and fabricated the autopsy report.
Dad! My leg!
Lord Van Zeeks?
Pray forgive my freshly filled hollow chalice and a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me!
It's just a sort of tall tale Londoners will enjoy, grant you. And executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover up, a conspiracy at the highest level. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger? Ow. And dispose of him forever. Oh well, I have no idea that. We have too little information on that work out the present, I think. I couldn't agree more. Take another drink. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. Ugh. And have you considered this, my Buddhist friend? Consider what? Do you realize what dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce with this woman in such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declare war on the entire British police force and judicators.
Quite! How do you imagine any sum of money being offered for a research group warranted?
To realize at some stage, the assumption with so much mistake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime indeed. The victim was murdered.
A man who already invested money in vengeance and would instrument in future profit too.
Yes, I agree. No reason to kill Mr. Asman. Or are you forgetting that his death result of me received not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and victim, no? Oh, you're not getting away with this thing.
Yeah, there is a contract. That's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep though. I can feel it. Using threats to force the head of forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant that he has no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway, which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. Why? What was his motive?
Your time is up, my friend. I say you have one last chance before the Jews lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your head, Limpopo's shower. Whoopsie!
How do you explain why this engineer would throw all the cautions to the wind and trade his own country? I'm sorry about that. Wow, my friend. Wow, my assistant is really good at dodging.
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
Alright, who exactly was Mr. Drebber? There's a connection there that's no one seen yet. Oh, I did see. Mr. Asman is a freaking reporter. Where's my lord? The evidence has been established a motive. Wait, I'm trying to get this one right first because if I'm worried I'll blow my case up, so. Yeah, because I saw the signature, so. Okay.
Take that!
Oops. Oh. Wait, what? I got. Is that one? Mr. Drebber, I have here a contract that you signed with Mr. Asman. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I have no reason to kill a man. No, I'm afraid not. As it turns out, this contract actually helps to establish the real motive for the murder you committed.
It does? Well, I never.
What are you talking about? Read it again, you idiot. I'm not finished. In order to demonstrate what your motive really was, I need this contract and one other piece of evidence. What other evidence?
Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. This evidence, which we, when cross-reference, the contract establish a motive deed.
Yeah, this one.
Take that!
I nearly guessed it wrong. It's this newspaper article, my lord. That's the written 10 years. That was written 10 years ago. And every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never be written. It's typical gutter press nonsense.
Objection!
But there's something significant that this newspaper article and the contract has in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly that you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman. It seems the defense has uncovered something that the rest of us had missed. So, my little friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence had in common. Where exactly linked between the newspaper? This one! Hello?
Take that!
What these two pieces of evidence had in common is a signature.
A signature?
The signature of the illustration that accompanied the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belongs to the same person. What? Oh! As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and they interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen at the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim here, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see that. Good Lord, yes, the identical.
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
Objection!
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman? Well, if you think back, you remember that Mr. Drebber talked about the article in his testimony.
Good grave robbing, you say?
Yes, consuming fresh crops to sell is reasonably illegal.
That is quite beyond pay. You will invite divine reputation, so you piece of shit.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The daily circus eventually unearned my name and put in its print. It cost me very many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously by my name. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait. Now I think. Oh, because of this little man practice look, fostering burger talent for the future of science discovery. It seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly Mr. Drebber was really talented scientist. Yeah, so that means he was talented. At the time, he was a student of the University of London who dreamed of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So, you have to give up on your dream and leave the university. You lost everything. Eventually, you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman.
Enough!
Stop this endless drivel about my life. What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. It was just for the straws that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research, but they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did. We only to have taken them by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and paid patently by some wretch or other. Oh, good gracious. Making a name for yourself a scientist like a climber like that was a miracle only a selected few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I was one of the geniuses, so it was hard to match. Oh, you're a lying sack of shit. You are a genius. Being forced out of the university because of low grade was the best thing I could.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who better place to know whether or not I possess such talent for science than me? Sorry to say that your words don't ring true. How dare you! And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in position to say anything about me? I don't know anything for your ad. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What do you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent?
Take that!
Oh, I don't know. Science trophy? Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found this at your workshop. Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
What exactly is that trophy, Scout?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no high accord. It recognizes emerged talent and promises a bright future.
Good gracious.
Your prospects for the future were excellent. Weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents go to waste. As a result, this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, but when it dawns on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is, finally, he's going to fall, hopefully. Who is it now? Hold it. Fine. Clearly, this has run its course now.
What?
I admit it. All of it. What?
What are you doing?
It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced in going along with this man's plot to murder the victim on the condition that he keep my dirty secret from 10 years ago.
Oh Lord!
Dr. Sai, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the crystal tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I had done my best to bury deep inside myself. There was the professor again, staring me in the face, and then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was no note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Sai, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it says. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judicacy. I can only apologize now. Why on earth you buckle now? Well, there's no point trying to hide anymore, is it? I would have done anything to stop it from coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice had admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admitted in part in it too then. I admit nothing. Oh, what? Oh, come on, really? Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting the crime, there is no really possible way for you proving that I did anything wrong. No!
Order.
Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zieks?
Yes?
I hope you accept my apologies. Whatever happens next is in your hands, of course.
I have heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoing of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Halpern.
Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Sai has admitted to the allegation brought by the defense, therefore absolving the defense of any possibility of guilt.
You mean?
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution add an objection?
None, my lord. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Holder. You've proven Professor Harper is innocent! Yay!
Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matter to discuss.
What's wrong? I don't know. This doesn't seem quite right. Why did Dr. Sai suddenly admit to the life of Hang on, Miss Nardo. Like you said before, the way the trial is so set to end now, the judge will simply deliver a verdict of not guilty. Is that really what you wanted? If I should be what the question for now is. Further testimony. Something's not right. You're right.
Objection!
Objection. The defense objects the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon.
We demand one final testimony.
What? You don't realize I'm about to adjure in the favor of your clients, I presume?
What are you playing at, my goodness, friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conduct of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Miss Nando, what exactly are you thinking? The truth, the whole truth, and the way to bring it all out in the open. Right. Yes, in hindsight. Ah yes, one more warning before I go. If in the course of this trial, in the afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let that off your sight. Pursue like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. You know fault. Whatever may comes to pass. Wait, I'm trying to tell you. Wait. Hold on. Yeah, the blood. Did he die standing up? Did he fall on the ground? How the f- If he... Oh, so it was caught me. Okay, now I know. You're trying to get out of this, huh? Oh, okay, now you're going to get my wish on getting yawned. Got is arrested. I must have moved this place. Yes, I'm here in the court of Pokemon for my client, and to secure an equator, obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have the duty into the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until the very last detail is laid bare. And that is why defense calls for further testimony for Dr. Side. Testimony from me? For what? For the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. In that case, just give your attention. I already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship and me claim your client will get acquainted you want of him. There's simply no point in protecting the business further with another tedious discussion.
Objection!
Wait, what? Screw this boss.
Oh! Oh, you're him your ass! No, damn it, you did it! Oh.
Pray forgive my careless handling Pray forgive my careless handling of that hollow bottle I slipped. That's what you call it?
Screw you, senseless!
What is your objection, Lord Benzie? The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Stupid! If there is more to this case that is yet come to light, then I will join my learned friends in pursuing the fact until the bitter end. You what? What then, Zeke?
This is most irregular to say at least. However, as the prosecution also calls for, I will uphold the request. Dr. Side, you will testify before the court to explain the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Very well. Yeah, there must be something that caused about the it all began the scene when I saw the expert had the note tucked into the jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note instruction, was beneath the experiment stage. The body had to be arranged in such a way to implicate the defense, which was my job, and it's little that helped the entire forensic team investigation to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago stays should be as well. I have to protect it. Okay. Alright, the stage and the machine were all specially designed for this deception. So it seems, and all meticulously prepared, you did well to see through. You're a very shrewd boy. So kind of you to say. I hope it's sarcasm.
And what about the autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the crystal tower instead of under the stage. That's all. That's a terrible construction. Only my team were aware of the deceit and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland knew anything about it, I assure you.
We might be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that this does make a claim for everything. There's no particular need for consolation, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just looking at the expression of Dr. Sykes' face. It's the defense right to cross-examine any witness following testimony. What is it about you Japanese make you also doggedly persistent?
Very well, if you do decide to cancel, proceed with the final cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. Yeah, I'm going to say this final because it must be some. This one more, so let's say final. Cannot be more than. Okay, I know that this is not. You know what? I just want to try to see. Let's see if we can get it. From what you described before, it sounds like the note was anonymous. Do you have an idea who was behind it? There are few people who know about what really happened 10 years ago from the start. Anyways, I never heard of this engineer, so no, I have no idea. Yes, despite not knowing who was behind the plan, you went along with it. I had no choice. Protecting the professor's secret was my only concern. The horse then be boarded up, and the stable door would never shut again. Scotland Yard's reputation would be immensely damaged as a result of all this. Yes, thank you, Lord Benzix. I'm well aware of that.
So as I understand it, what you found at the birdcage was the waxwork model, where then there was the different board.
Hold it!
So you knew about the special transaction on the stage used to carry out the trick then? It was quite obvious what happened with the victim and the waxwork. And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's body as having been discovered in the crystal tower and the waxwork. Unwrapped it and sent it by carriage to the specific address at the split victim. And why were you given such direction? Presumably so it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to manage the spells. I see, and then you put the birdcage back on the experiment stage. Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I made perfectly clear to the team, but still, I suppose you will focus on the victim's body, that being a more incomplete.
Hold it!
When you say arrange, I presume you mean this. Yes, the instruction in the engineer's note says something along the lines of fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Harebrain alone could have killed Asman. Oh, so you mean that it was your doing? I fetched Harebrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage and took it with me alone to the place on the stage where the just fall.
Alone, Doctor.
Oh, I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in the particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged the man into the man's chest. And then you noted that in your fixed autopsy report as a fictionless cause of death. Exactly. Yeah, there's no way. That's what I'm taught. The actual cause of death was the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
My word.
What is it, Mrs. Suzuto? Something about Dr. Sykes' last statement. It's playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too.
Side? There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well. The defense colleague will add what you just said for your former testimony. Oh? Which part? I don't want it. The way she dropped. What she did to the victim. How do you stab Mr. Admin's chat? Fine, this is what you want. But there's no really need to point. The prosecution concurs. Shut up, bandit.
Where are you supplement testimony?
If you wish, my lord. Yeah, this one does not. Yeah, I was wondering. The blood goes straight down. If you poke it, it will be just a bloodshot. So you screw yourself up.
Objection!
There we go. I've got a nasty feeling. Yeah, I kind of noticed that. And it all comes down to this. That this inconsistency points an extremely uncomfortable truth.
What on earth is this matter, cousin? Have you lost your tongue? And why am I hearing a different kind of theme music now?
I apologize, my lord. Dr. Sai, in the last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems defy explanation. Out with it, my learned friend. There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the fence that leads to his death.
Objection!
The court has already examined the photograph of death. There's nothing new we can learn.
Objection!
Yes, we have already considered it. That's true. But we now know that the fact to be different. What do you mean?
I believe we should let the defense explain. Where is this photograph? Would we see inconsistency?
This one!
Take that!
The bloodshot. Look closely at the blood stain on the victim's shirt. It clearly extends in a downward direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, concern?
If the victim was stabbed in the moment before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely expected.
Of course, no, that's not.
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Sai made it very clear in her testimony just now that the point in which she stole Professor Harry's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion when the birdcage has fallen below the stage out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-feet drop. And if the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it has a form, the longitude appearance we see in the picture is conclusive work. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically down through the wound, it must have been the case where you stabbed Mr. Asman. He was standing up. In short, Dr. Sai, your latest estimate was a total fabrication. Dinosaur! I knew it. I was right. Now I identified that contradiction. There's only one way to explain the fact. We've all been under a great misapprehension here. What? What sort of misapprehension? Dr. Sai? You claim you were coercive into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you have made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant, and you claim that you authorized a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. One of those claims is an out lie, because the question of what the blood stain really tells us has only one possible answer. If that's the case, what is it, man?
Also, you clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell us the controversy. Which part of Dr. Site's story is shown to be alive by the contract of the testimony?
This one, the stabbing on the victim. I hope I'm right with this. Stabbing on the victim. The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. If when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downwards as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting on or standing up right at the time. But if you rightly point out, the blood cage would have fallen on the side where it fell beneath the stage. Yes, it would, which tells us that the victim must have been in the position of his own body.
Objection!
That's impossible. That man was dead, remember? No, that is the misapprehension. You mean he's alive? He survived that drop. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force.
Oh, damn it. I should hold it. Hey guys, I'm alive. No worry.
But Mr. Asman didn't fall from the floor.
Damn, it must be a miracle that I'm still alive.
He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came around, he got to his feet to climb out the cage. Just as Dr. Site appeared.
Hey there, madam.
If the victim was in fact alive at the point in time, it changes everything. Are you?
What? No, don't! Oh, damn it.
Mr. Odie Asman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Haber. Nor was the mastermind behind the stage secret, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney's son!
Order! Can this possibly be true?
No! Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him? Damn, I lost my accent. Sorry. Look at me! You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme to travel back, before you were accused for a far worse crime. Cold-blood murder. Oh, do shut up! You're so desperate now. You're making all this up as if I would do something like that.
Objection!
I assure you that the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Nardo has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Logic? Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it. What? What do you mean? I have thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Asman? Asman was involved in a number of criminal activities for police to tap the murder. There is no known connection to Dr. Site there.
I'm rather relieved to say it doesn't seem from a far-fetched.
True, there's no obvious motive, but there's still something in the back of my mind. The scalpers? Don't tell me those thousands of scalpers with what? Corruption money, it's corruption money. I feel they should have seen somewhere that hints at why the coroner would have done this. Yes, I might have to tamper with the crime scene and calculate a figure, but murdering someone for no reason is a very different.
Objection!
But no, when you question what possible reason you could have for wanting to kill Mr. Asman, something did come up to mind.
What was the concept? Enlighten up to the point.
Yes, we saw it yesterday, didn't we? Something that seems strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Site would have wanted to kill Mr. Asman. The scalpels! It's a scalpel, or rather, scalpels.
Did you say scalpels?
It will appear that words has struck chord, Doctor. You! Come on, out with it! It was yesterday when we visited your laboratory. There we go. Look at this big tick book here. Ah, it's a Christine accountant ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team spending, I think. Oh, what is it? It's clear that the team purchased various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but, well, one entry seems rather strange. Really? In what way? They buy 500 scalpels every month. Yeah, that is... So it was corruption money. 500 scalpels is impossible.
500 scalpels a month?
But first, I wonder what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant. It's the money from them. Disappearing every month from the department's account. Asman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion to fund its funding. Tracing the money from the forensic investigation team's account to find out where it was going would be extremely straightforward. 10 years ago, when Mr. Asman was still a journalist and wrote this article about Mr. Drebber, he may as well have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Sykes' Dr. C that he would use to wrap money from her for the next decade.
Dr. Secret? Good lord, you mean extortion?
I don't know what happened on the night that on the execution that was real, but clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you were codes at all, weren't you? You did entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Asman in the heart with all your might to silence the blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever. Alright, break it down. You never understand. None of you. What we have to keep cover up all these long years. What? Really now? No villainous breakdown or whatever. No usual breakdown. Oh, come on. Really? Well, I think this is okay because the fact we don't have crazy breakdowns, but you got me off guard again. Good job, game. Okay. Anyways, as a very little of the machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb, the truth of the case can never be established unless you speak out. And if you decide not to, it's very possible the caught inside will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up for what you've done and tell the court the truth about what happened. 10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to severe the whole of the fates that had over these years. Super high for this instantaneous kindness. I mean, really. It's the other brain mock scientists that are the worst, you know. They don't recognize the fact they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their ability. They go on and on about their wonderful hypothesis, their stupid eyes shining like little shouts. They make me sick! I can't abide their foolishness.
Careful, Mr. Drebber.
I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it? So you admitted. You admitted that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim. Yes, I admit. I did it all in the name of revenge. Revenge for the future that Mr. Asman's article had deprived you of 10 years ago. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Asman, did it? Which is where the very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see. The condemned criminal that you saw rising from the grave in Lower Gate Cemetery 10 years ago. If your account of the events was all true, then obviously Scotland Yard's gonna afford to acknowledge what happened. Even if it means discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future careers he might have. So your plan required that you abducted that particular Waxwell model in order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well, or on Dr. Syke to be precise. It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asman turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him, an article on the front page caught my eye. He was the coroner who handled that bogus autopsy, being appointed head of the new forensic team. When I learned that news, my cognitive processors started to revise the plan. What a horrid tale! He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use this man's own wild against him for revenge. And have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. Damn! I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I had to suffer. Your actions against those who ruin you in the future won't justify revenge, at least to yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you? Did I? Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis, while you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effort your revenge. You knew that he would be forever branded as a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and other misconducts left your life in tatters. But you remember this. Your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man. I...
Lord vengeance, what of Dr. Syke?
An immediate warrant for her arrest had been granted, and she's being remanded in custody. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber.
A most regretful situation indeed. She's made great contribution to her profession over the years. It's really a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasions. For now, Professor Harebrain.
Yes?
It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume here that now that all the assorted details have been brought to light, it has been a very long and profound trial, but I'm pleased to say you are absolved for all guilt.
This whole experience has taught me a very great but painful lesson. This dedicated scientist, this devoted of nature philosophy. I've been selfish and self-centered, and above all, a fool. Professor, I spent my life thinking of nothing but research, misguided believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to, despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process, I caused others pain and misery. Others who are far, far greater people than I am. No, Professor, that's not true. What? Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing, and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way. Not Benzine's. And derision in which we referred to you earlier, calling you fool, talentless even. The man had no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams, that's longer, not laughable. No one has the right to deride another for such choices. Thank you, Barrow.
Anyway, so, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord? It is to court expectation that you find the defendant not guilty of the charge to which he stands accused. I presume there are no objections. None from me, my lord.
Certainly not. This trial has really made me think, but this is the right decision.
It's all because the proven methodology and very previously, I am no misbreathing whatsoever.
Oh, what's that? Easy done, easy? It's all over?
I don't know what become of the yard these days. I don't recognize a place, damn it. Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant not guilty. It's confetti times and fireworks. Court is adjourned.
It's over. That was some trial. Oh, that's 24th October, 4:33 p.m. The old Bailey's defense antechamber. Professor, what is the outcome, isn't it? Oh, is it? Is it? Congratulations, Professor Hebrew. It's not heard of. Mrs. Sitter, I am truly beside myself with gratitude. How can I ever thank you enough? I'm just glad it all be cleared up, that you realized you were just caught up in a bad situation. Right now. If I haven't researched that grandma, I have given up a lot to you, even pennies. Well, that's very kind, but I'm just a student, so we don't need any financial reward. Your coin was more than enough. I'm a little poor, so... Oh dear, what am I gonna do? Aha! How about this? A memento, a paper of my habits sitting inside. Thanks, but no thanks. Well, just as a memento then. Thank you. No. What do you want, Professor? What are you gonna do now? Oh my. Yes, what am I gonna do? My appetite and my great machine lies in ruins. Blown this smithereens. But still, it's been too long since I was in London, so first I'm trying a little subside here. I must explore the great exhibition while I'm here to look and see if new inspiration hits me. Oh yes, that's a wonderful idea. I can't unlock. What the? Ow, come on. Long Man 6, what are you doing here? Baron, now, I'm sorry, you have to go through that, Albert. Well, if I'm honest, it was a terrible. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down your prey. You're one of the few true friends I have. I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense. Sorry? Or the defense? Did I just hear that right? I always knew that you had my best interest at heart, don't worry. How about you show me around while I'm here downtown? It's been too long since I left university. We have a lot to catch up on. Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquaintance will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you. What? From there, you cross the channel and make your way back to Germany. I already purchased the tickets. But no! Hold on there, bro. What about the great exhibition? This is a chance of a lifetime me. I want to look around. No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea. Something seems hard to see what those eyes bear. Number 6. What's this all about? Necessary precaution. Yes, I think I understand. You do? Well, Iris told me that when you meet Lord Benzie at his office some days ago, he asked how Mr. Nasumi was doing. Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time and thinking it was nice of him to ask. Point is, Mr. Nasumi is still alive and well, even though it's been more than 6 months now since he stood trial with the Reaper and as a prosecutor. You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas? Those in the Reaper's side, at their end, days or sometimes months of the equator. That's been a pattern up to now. But of course, we know that both Mr. Nasumi and Gina were completely innocent. True, and perhaps that governed the Reaper's actions, and the true leaders are spared. But I don't want to take chances with a close personal friend. But like the mustache Nipponists, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once. Right. Does your friendship package get anything to say in it? Goodness, what did your intention along than more than Zeke's? In court, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless, and yet sometimes I feel as though I don't understand him at all. It's time for you to go back. But back to the prison for the time being. Yes, well then, it's an order. Thank you so much for everything. No, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you. Best wishes, Professor Harvey. Well, once that's said, you must come to visit me in Japan. Anyways, goodbye for now. I'm going to Yale again. Well, to be a equator, but never mind. Now, my little friend. Oh, yes? I thought you'd gone too. We have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time? Do you want to talk with me? I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes. Okay. Well, that was strange. For some reason, I didn't get that sense of impending doom as he walked away this time. The enigma Baron Von Zix. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer awaits in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes then. October, 4:58 p.m. The Old Daily. So, are you satisfied? You saved a guileless scientist from a great injustice. Yes, I think so. I believe at least that the man's innocence could be proven. Anyways, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards your Nipponists come from. Ow! Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagine you saw me as a pretender's child from an unimportant land who has no business being here. But now I think differently. You clearly know our ways, so I would guess there's some specific incident lead you to your total dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please? The professor. I thought I never heard that name in this courtroom again, to be honest. He took your brother's life. Flint. My brother was Flint Van Ziet. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens. He was already the director of prosecution and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice system in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan. Oh, if it was 16 years ago, then one of them could have been my father. Of course. I remember Dr. Mikoto as well. I have no idea. I was a minor at that time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to the three visiting diplomats. So, you actually met my father? He and his colleagues were polite and communicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nicholas spirit and made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved. I'm so sorry, London Zix. True. Clint was always ready to put his life on his line. For justice, anyway. So he wouldn't have any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was greatly lost. It was a great loss, right? I found myself in a very dark space, indeed. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch him, man, sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time. In plain sight? Are you aware of political events 10 years ago? There was a period of extreme sensitive diplomacy between the British and the Japanese Empire. A new treaty was being forged, I think. Correct. The Anglo-Japan Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was being concluded. The leaders of both countries were deep in extensive political discussion. Which is why this particular killer appearance in court was conducted as a post-trial. If the British public knows the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, but our two nations could very well end up at war. What? A war between Britain and Japan? But that would mean... Oh my, you mean to say the professor was...
When the trial reached its conclusion earlier, I thought to myself, yes, it's time. Time for you to come face to face with this hideous monster.
We're having a voice now?
I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So see for yourselves now. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
That's the professor?
Yes, that's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind that the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Wait a minute. That face. I feel as though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
Father.
What? Father? Kazuma! My best friend, Kazuma Asogi, after a whole year, finally his memories returned. As he stood there before me, Ryunosuke. Hello again. My friend.
Kazuma-sama!
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. It's been a very long road. Thank you. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma. I owe you thanks, too, for taking good care of that in my absence. Oh. Karuma, the great blade of the Asobi clan, passed down through the generations. When we left Japan, this sword was at my friend's side. A Japanese man's katana is his soul, and he couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened, it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since, along with my memories of the friendship we shared. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow. I've made it. At last. Father. Are you saying... Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time? I'm looking at it. But... I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
Kazuma-sama.
Ryunosuke. We have much to talk about, but now is not the time. I'll be seeing you. That's all Kazuma said.
Yeah.
Before he turned and left us there, in the courtroom.
So, he's a living after image of the man who took my brother's life, is he? Yes, Kazumi Asogi, my best friend. 3 months ago, when Longstrong introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there, some connection. Why did Longstrong do that? Why did he make Kazuma Lord Van Zieg's apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia too, the man was apprehended, even executed, but his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I thank you for meeting with me as I asked. "10 years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father for the train. For me, it was the first time I ever see him. Poor Susato-san. All this is tied up with painful memories for her too. She never talked about this with me before though. It took time to adjust to having father around, but just when I started to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that friend had left behind a son, a boy, 7 years from my senior. 7 years my senior, sorry. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was studying to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I am sure you worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asobi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time, as if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter, but in many, it was the start of a new one.
Wow, I totally really hope I make tears. And that's it for case 3 of the greatest. So, to summarize it, we learned that Kazuma Asogi is back, and the professor is, and the killer of the 10 years killer who roams free in London was Asogi's father, which we do not know whether that is true. But anyways, and hello, welcome. Yeah, we're looking cool, Joker. Yeah, but anyways, before sorry, and hey, are these yeah, I would say this is my first time I do the let's play for the Grace Eternity series, but if you, I also did some sort of let's sorry, I did some uploading on my YouTube channel, so look forward to it and thank you for subscribing. But anyways, for another closing argument, I see you in episode 4, Twisted Karma and the Last Bow. This is Andrew, signing off. Cards are judged.